Well, hey there, hobby homesteaders. Welcome back to Peak's Peak. Today I'm in the shop because I'm going to give you an update on the Dewalt 60-gallon air compressor that we installed last year. I'm going to share a couple of things with you that if I were installing an air compressor in my shop today, that I would do differently, because we've been using it for a year and I figured out some things along the way that might be more beneficial than the things that I did when I set this up to begin with. And of course, the other thing we are going to cover is the fact that, well, our compressor doesn't work anymore. I'm gonna explain to you what happened and how we're gonna go about fixing it. So Cameron was out here doing some work on his grandpa's car, and the air compressor kicked on and kicked right back off. And he was over there working and didn't think too much about it. And then it kicked back on and started kicking on and off really quickly. And of course that caught his attention, what in the world's going on? And he jumped up and looked over here. And by the time he got over here to actually shut it off, the motor itself was smoking. And he kicked the breaker off, which was smart. Now when I turn on power to it, I've got power to the switch, no power coming out of the switch. And when I jump power to the motor, I cannot get it to engage. So the switch failed, and where it failed, it fried the motor as well. Maybe the kicking on and off did that, I'm not real sure, but the switch and the motor are bad. And we've only had this in the shop right around a year. Of course, I was very disappointed in that, but it's a Dewalt compressor, so I wanted to give them a chance to make it right. I think they have a 12-month warranty on this. With my math, I was figuring that we were maybe even past that 12-month period, but this compressor has hardly seen any use. So I couldn't imagine that it should have failed. And I was just curious to see if they would stand behind their product. So I reached out to Dewalt and I explained to them what happened. And their response to me was, after I shared my serial number and the receipts and everything, and then I told them about when it was actually installed, because if you'll remember, I bought this on a Black Friday deal, but it sat sealed up in the barn for about 5 months before we finished the shop and then moved it in here. So it definitely has not been installed for over a year. With all of that, they decided to go ahead and cover this under warranty. And they sent me a switch and they sent me a motor, as long as I could do the repairs myself. So that's what we're gonna do today. And then while I'm making those changes, I'm gonna tell you about some of the things that I would do differently if I set up my air supplies in the shop today. Sounds like we got a little bit of rain coming down out there. So I said I was gonna share some things I would do differently. And I actually, I'll be honest, there's a couple people commented this when I posted my video, the install, from the get-go. The number one thing that I would do differently is I would not pipe and plumb the entire shop. We used PEX and we went through all of that, and by the time we bought all the fittings and everything, we spent several $100s running pipes across the ceilings and putting outlets all over the garage. Now they're pretty nice and it works okay, but what would have worked probably about as well is a 50-foot retractable air hose reel and one outlet right over here. We pull the hose over and go. But at the very least, run an outlet from here and maybe one in the center of the garage with an air hose drop down from the ceiling so that we could route it wherever we want to go. I think that would end up being a more affordable route. And probably I could have paid for installing that and buying a high quality hose instead of doing this whole plumbing and then having multiple hoses that also are not on reels and they're not retractable and they're a big wadded up mess. So we have one manual reel that we bought from Harbor Freight that we set up over there, and it's the one we use the most probably. If I had it to do over again, I would forego all of the drops and I would buy a retractable hose reel. Hook it up that way. Sounds like Cameron's home from work. I hear his truck pulling in out there. And his bluegrass jamming. What's up, son? The next thing I've got to do is take the cord off the old motor and put it on the new motor. And guys, I'll tell you, if you're changing out this motor, this pulley actually has 2 set screws on it. And I didn't realize that, but there's another one here. And so I took the one that was on the keyway loose, and since the pulley didn't move, I got a pulley puller and I pulled it off. And I was able to get it off, but that's why I struggled to get it off, because I didn't realize there were 2 set screws. Kind of a silly mistake. All right, guys, moment of truth. Kick the power on. Don't hear anything fizzing. I like it. We'll let her pump up. So we got our Dewalt air compressor working again. Everything seems to be right. The pressure shut off at about 155. I was actually going to turn it down because it was going past 150, and I thought that's where it was supposed to be set. But as soon as I took the lid off to start adjusting it, it actually kicked off. And so I think we're good there. Yeah, everything seems to be as it should be. So we're back up and running. But here's the thing. I learned a few things through this dealing, and one is when I reached out to Dewalt for customer service, I was transferred to Campbell Hosfield, another completely different company to handle the warranty claim on this compressor, because Dewalt doesn't make this compressor themselves. I was very happy to see that they stood behind it. That's part of why I went with the Dewalt compressor, is because I felt like they've got a good reputation. And so if they have a good reputation, that means they must stand behind whatever product they put their name on. And I was counting on that. But I've been burned by that before. I think that they did what they should have done. And I don't necessarily lose my mind when I have a bad experience with a product or something breaks, because everybody has defects, everybody has things that go wrong. That's just, something that you have to deal with here and there. We'll see how it goes this time. Hopefully we get a little more than a year out of this one. But we are back up and running, and that is a relief. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And listen, I don't claim to be an authority on any of this stuff, but as I buy products and install them in my shop, I have a YouTube channel. I just like to share with people my experiences. And they may be different than yours, but all of that information out on the web gives people what they need to make an informed decision when they go shopping. And more, I'm turning to YouTube to research big purchases and kind of help make a decision before I pull the trigger. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and we appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good day.